Does the U.S. need to do more to prevent civilian deaths in Gaza?
Well, Natasha, this is exactly what Secretary of Defense Austin was warning about and against in his recent visit to Israel, to try to caution the Israeli government about major military operations needing to wind down because these types of attacks can occur. And they don't advance the objective of what Israel is trying to do, which is to defeat and destroy Hamas's ability to attack it. It's the right goal for Israel, but at this stage, when there are more attacks like this that seem to appear, as the president said, indiscriminate, that creates real problems for actually being effective, and of course is a humanitarian nightmare as well. And we have to always mourn every life lost. Even while we watch Israel defending itself, every life lost like this is just a tragedy.
And of course, Israel says that Hamas is intermingled in every community there. But I do want to ask, do you believe that the airstrike on that refugee camp, more than 70, likely much more than 70 dead, does that advance Israel's cause and their goals in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, Natasha, Israel's making headway in its invasion of Gaza, in decimating Hamas, decimating its leadership, its troops, hitting the tunnels. But as you described, look, these Hamas fighters are embedded within the population, and it means there will be high civilian casualties. And that's a real problem. And I think what the president has been saying is the right tone, which is, I support Israel's right to defend itself and to attack Hamas. But these attacks need to start to move into a phase where there's a targeted focus on the Hamas leadership and on the Hamas fighters. That broader attacks will undermine the global will of support for Israel and, frankly, undermine the mission, which ultimately is going to require Palestinians wanting to turn the page on Hamas. So these attacks don't strengthen that position. They actually are counter to it. So this Israeli moment is a real moment to decide about its strategy. And it's tragic that we see an attack of this size, because this crystallizes the complexity of this military operation.
Yeah, and I do want to discuss a new report from the Wall Street Journal this weekend. Yeah. It says that days after the October 7th attacks, President Biden actually convinced Netanyahu to halt a preemptive strike against Iran-backed Hezbollah, warning that it could spark a wider war in the Middle East. Now, apparently, Israeli warplanes were reportedly in the air awaiting orders during this conversation. Can you help us understand the stakes here? What was potentially narrowly averted?
So a couple of key data points here. First and foremost, Hezbollah is a much more significant military threat to the state of Israel than Hamas. It has 150 to 200,000 rockets in southern Lebanon and along Israel's northern border that can be devastating. So Israel's always concerned about that border. There have been skirmishes, but Israel needed American air support as a backbone for its attacks if it were to advance those. And President Biden said no. And there's a very clear reason why. Because it would have been seen as an aggressive attack. We have not seen, from the United States perspective, our intelligence has not seen that Hezbollah is going to launch attacks. It does not mean they're not a threat, but they're very modest attacks at this moment. And that's why I think it was crucial to be prudent and not to open up a wider war when the major objective for Israel has been up to this point to defeat Hamas in the south. That said, Hezbollah remains a threat. That's why we see American warships in the Eastern Mediterranean to deter Hezbollah from taking any action that would be ill-advised, because at that point, American support certainly would be there to support Israel if that were to go forward.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Joel, with the time we have left, I do want to talk to you about the potential new proposal. We know today Egypt has placed on the table a truce in the war, the release of more Israeli hostages. What are you tracking there? What is the likelihood you think that this truce actually moves forward?
Well, there's language here that goes first and foremost to a truce and a hostage exchange like we saw a month or so ago that was negotiated by Qatar. But it also goes further and talks about the day after plan, the idea of there being a new Palestinian leadership going into Gaza. So it opens up the whole interesting set of questions that need to be answered. I don't think that we're going to see an immediate Israeli acceptance or an immediate Hamas acceptance. But at the end of the day, this kind of deal and the deal that Qatar negotiated was the most effective way at getting the Israeli hostages out of Gaza and also getting Palestinian prisoners released, which was a high priority for the Palestinian people and for Hamas. So this may have legs, as they say, but it is a very broad set of questions that are being put on the table.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.